Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope you're all good. Hope you're all okay. I hope you can hear me. Um, yeah, what are we going to talk about now that the ETFs are done? Who knows if we're going to have any in which we can go through. Hopefully, we'll find some news and there will be some things to talk about. Hey, Chris, and hey, Adam. Hope you're good. So what we're going to do today, well, it's pretty much the same as all of them. We'll go through a bit of charting, bit of news. We are going to have a look at post ETF, try and understand why price has done what it's done and where we may be going in the future. I think I've got a question or two sort of sent through, so we'll go over those. But if you do have any questions, Adam says he thinks it's breaking. Try and test that in a moment. Yeah, but if you do have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to drop them into the question box. Adam, let me know if you think that's cleared up or if anyone else thinks I am breaking up. I've got a pretty long list of new projects. Yeah, I will go and show you sort of some of the new projects, or new, they're not new crypto projects, but projects I've been looking at over the last couple of weeks, and I am looking for entries and where some of those said entries are going to be. Right, but without any further ado, let's just jump straight in. Okay, price chart as we've all seen it there. We're going to go over Bitcoin a little bit later. But you can see in the far right hand corner of this is where the action happened. So we had the false alarm last Avengers call with fake news that drove our price up, pulled back down, and then pulled it back down. Then what we had, the announcement was on Wednesday the 10th of January. We'll go over this a little bit on. We had some movement up, but it was the following day that we saw the biggest push up, and I'll explain my thoughts on why that is later on. Since then, price has actually it's reverted back to where it was for pretty much the whole December. And we've been hanging around anywhere from this 42 to 43,000 range. Now, this could be something to do with the dollar. The dollar has seen a fairly decent uptick this year, but for me, it's still in that downtrend, even though it is now at 103. A break of 104, say that we've got rid of that downtrend. Sound not great for you either. Okay, just 2 seconds, everyone, while I try and sort this sound out for everybody. See if it works. On and off. Hopefully that's helped. Yeah, Anthony's he's still breaking up. I did the old on and off. Hopefully that's cleared it up there. We'll keep on investigating that as we go through. I mean, I'm looking at the mixer. It seems to be catching me okay. But I'm down to you guys because I can't obviously hear myself. So you just let me know how it is sounding. It's be directional. My mouth, as you can see, is right in front. So I'm not sure on that one. I'm going to keep trying. One thing that did improve last week was Ethereum. So we talked last week about Ethereum not really putting best price action, but since the ETF, we've seen a stellar move upwards. Consolidation at the moment. Going from there, still only sound goodish. It's not what you want to hear, I'll be honest. So I'm gonna see. Actually, I'll put it on the screen so I can up. All right, let's just try one last thing. Apart from stopping the stream, I'm kind of out of options now. I've moved on to a different mic setting. I've reset it twice. It's picking it up. Anyway, I'll leave that to you guys there. I mean, Casper's on here. We'll have a look at Casper. What I will say about Casper, it's not really done much for the last couple of months now. It's been just a consolidation period. I'll give you some of my other thoughts on that one a little bit later on. If I keep on looking over to the left, just trying to see if you guys are telling me if it is it's bad. Okay, right. What do you want to hear? Let's keep trying with this then. Okay. That's it. That's it on live again. Obviously, we'll cut this one out of the recording. Might just be your signal. The fact that, well, if someone else can comment whether or not they think it's not great. Honestly, it sounds pretty clear for Colts. Chris says directional. Right. I'm going to keep on going and we'll have a look. A lot better, it seems. A lot louder. Okay. Well, I think we're getting there. You haven't missed much. I'll recap everything I've said. Let's just jump straight into the news. So I don't really like to talk politics in here, and I'm not necessarily going to be delving into this one in any great detail. But because Vivek was such a crypto-friendly presidential candidate, it is worthwhile just mentioning that last night, this morning, wherever you sit in the world, he did actually drop out of the US presidential race. Effectively, there was, again, it's not a political channel, this, but there was a caucus in Iowa. Donald Trump was okay, hopefully back. No good deed. I think my mixer just went into overdrive then. What I was saying, yeah, effectively, he came, Chris, hopefully I'm back now. He came quite convincingly behind all the other Republican candidates, so he has dropped out. The only reason I mention is he was pretty much the only presidential candidate on both parties that's really been very positively crypto-friendly. It's a shame to see him go. I think it was a long shot if he was ever going to make it. But yeah, that's where we are. If anyone's interested, he's thrown his support behind Donald Trump. Other kind of political news that I just want to mention and don't delve in too much. So it is the WEF this week. So that is the World Economic Forum conference at Davos 2024. It started yesterday. It's a week-long thing. There's nothing that's come out of it necessarily at the moment, but you might start to see a lot more articles or focus on some things. As you know, there are a lot of crypto-related projects and I don't know, sectors that are discussed there. Now, the two main focuses, as it says here, are going to be on AI and crypto regulations. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. Now, for us, AI is a pretty big sector that we want to focus on going into the next bull market. So it'll be certainly interesting to see how some of the projects we may or may not like align themselves with the WEF. And I know people have different views on what the WEF can possibly do, but we'll have a look where that goes. And again, crypto regulation is something we've all been calling for, that clarity, certainly in the UK. I want to know exactly where this sits so I can have those discussions with the likes of the banks. We talked about that last week. No need to go into it. Right. For any of you that were asleep in a coma for the last 7 days, as I mentioned, January 10th, we finally got genuine proof, confirmation from the SEC, no account hacks or anything like that, that the spot ETFs, well, they call them ETPs, so they're exchange traded products, but they're effectively the same thing, have been approved. And so that was it. And what was more, the very next day, on the 11th of January, they went live, they went into effect. So we got that confirmation happened and we moved on. I'm not going to touch on BTC at the moment because I actually want to move on to something else. I touched on this at the beginning, that ETH had an incredible move up afterwards, and it was off the back of, well, wait a second, guys, there's an Ether ETF which is under review and due for its first decision in May 2024. So I think a lot of people jumped in on that immediately because they saw the success and the lead in and the increase in price that BTC had over the months preceding it. And obviously people thought, right, well, if ETH is the next one to jump on, the next gravy train, let's get on board of that. And so we started to see that move. And when I go into the price action a little bit later, you actually started to see that ETH was moving immediately on the rumors that the January 10th day was the day. And since then, it's not really looked back. Now, with BlackRock improving their ETF record, it was 575 to 1. It's now 576 to 1. The market, or at least at the moment, seems to think that this is an absolute slam dunk. Now, for me, I'm not so sure with Ether. Ether has its own problems right now. Its biggest problem is the SEC hasn't defined it. So we're still in that battle of what's a security, what isn't a security, where does Bitcoin sit? Is it a commodity? Possibly. Where does ETH sit? We don't really know with that at the moment, what the implications of things like ICOs and those kind of things haven't played out. And I don't really see the SEC being able to clearly make that decision, make all of their legal cases against everything else go away, and then have time to approve an ETF come May. I mean, we're only talking 4 or 5 months away. So that one seems like potentially that might be a little bit too early. We'll have to just wait and see how that plays out. But the fact that we haven't got a definition on what ETH is, whether or not it's a security or not, I think is going to be a really big red flag for whether or not that's actually going to get through. I think BTC was a lot simpler. And don't forget, it had a lot of attempts of getting approved. But as I mentioned, the Ether price itself jumped 20% off the news of the Bitcoin Spot ETF. And if we actually have a look at that on the chart, why have I got this on the weekly? I don't know. Let's drop it down to the hourly and then let's try and find it. So what we had here, so if you remember, we were live last week. We went live, and then mid-live, 9 o'clock, we got the rumor that it had gone, and it shot up. But interestingly, when we found out that this didn't happen, and it was actually fake news, Bitcoin retraced. I'm not going to say it crashed. It retraced back down. Whereas ETH just kept on building. And it kept on building all the way through because everyone thought, right, well, if it's not the 9th, we haven't the confirmation, it's going to be the 10th. It kept on building. And all it's done is gone up and up and up. And off the back of the Bitcoin ETF launches on the 11th, still found it climbing through into the 12th over the weekend. It's had some consolidation now. But ultimately, from the start of, let's actually break it, just put it on the 12-hour now because we're just going to have a look at the price. But as we can see, no, that's the date. Here we go with the price. 8th, 9th, here we go. The second half, so it's down here. You know, it had a 22% from top to bottom, and it's currently still sitting 16% up from where the price started on that. So it has had a pretty impressive move. Now, yes, it's been quite stagnant, and there are other reasons why Ether could have moved up. We've talked about the fact that Bitcoin dominance is coming down. People are potentially moving some of that Bitcoin profit that they've made over the last couple of months into other altcoins, and a micro alt season may be on the cards at the moment. So that's going to certainly help ETH being the largest altcoin out there. But it's the timing. Has to be said that a lot of this has got to be attributed to the news of the ETF, the success of the Bitcoin ETF. And what I mean by the success of the Bitcoin ETF is not necessarily its approval, but people think, looking all the way back to October when we were talking realistically about a January ETF and riding it up from 30,000 up to 48, 49,000. And some people think, well, I missed that, or I had success in that. What's the next one to move into? I'll go and have a look at that at Ethereum. And so it's something to keep our eye on with where that goes. And potentially, you know, regardless of what may happen within the market, whether or not we start to see stagnation or start to see a correction with Bitcoin and some other altcoins, there's a possibility that the ETF hype could actually keep Ether, relatively high compared to the rest. So it'd be interesting to have a look at this versus BTC as we go through the weeks. And if we start to see that correction, are we actually seeing that Ether is starting to have that bounce in the ETH BTC chart, which I'll have a look at later as well. Some other news. This is one that's actually due for tomorrow, but it could give the market an excuse to rally again because the SEC is back in court again tomorrow against Coinbase. And this is one of the cases where the SEC accused Coinbase of violating its security laws. It was back in October, might be. Can't remember now. There's so many of these flying around. It said they were selling 13 cryptos that were deemed as securities. Coinbase have effectively said, right, well, you know what? We want to put a motion forward for judgment on the pleadings. And that was done last year, but actually it sits in front of court tomorrow morning, US time. The article kind of goes in, hey there, Mo, say there's 4 outcomes. So an outright win for the SEC is basically the judge dismissing Coinbase's motion. However, Coinbase has an outright shot if the judge grants Coinbase's motion with prejudice. And then there's two other options there, which grants the motion with respect to the token, but denies respect of the staking services. And the final one would be that the judge grants Coinbase's motion, but allows the SEC to amend certain deficiencies. So, I mean, I'm not exactly going to stay and, watch for this to drop. I'll just wait to see what happens. But I think the point that I'm trying to make there is an opportunity that we might actually get a resolution or some kind of decision that the SEC can't just hide behind US security. It has to come up with what its definition is for a crypto security. The judge may deem that that's what it needs to do. And if that's the case, then, we might then suddenly start to see, particularly these 13, but I think there's actually about 74 altcoins that have been listed as securities over the multitude of cases that the SEC has brought over the last couple of years. We might start to see that gives some clarity, and that clarity may either push the price up or actually pull it back down if it looks like they are falling within that zone. But the uncertainty is what we don't like. Hopefully tomorrow is going to give us some direction. So it's definitely worth looking into that. I think the only other thing on this one was World Economic Forum, which we've talked about. So that's kind of most of the news. I mean, obviously there's been some other things that I kind of thought there probably weren't too much going in. ETH founder Vitalik, he's talking about increasing the gas limits of Ethereum. There's been a bit of an uproar about that, which I've got the article. We can kind of post it through if we really want to, but because it hasn't gone through yet, and you know how these things work. Effectively, there's what they call them, an EIP that's put through, and then that's sort of voted upon, and then effectively the fork happens if it's going to go ahead. Well, they're looking to increase it by 33% or a third of the gas limit. There's definitely some positives around why that could be a good thing, talking about sort of throughput and capacity of the network. But then, there's other things that you got to take into account, which is the size of the block and how much it's going to be, and it's sort of like almost taking away the ability of sort of the smaller PC based validator, etc., and how much they're going to have to sort of keep in their memory banks, etc., may not be such a good thing. But this one's got to play out. I'll post the article if you're interested. To be honest with you, there wasn't too much news. A lot of things were just opinion pieces based on ETFs, which I'm going to give you mine. So why have a look at others? Okay, we've already talked about this, but I just want to get back into the BTC side of things at the moment, because this was, we've talked about this for months and months and months. We thought we had it actually happen to us live. It turned out to be a day later, but we're there. We got the ETFs, and there were a lot of people saying, right, as soon as ETFs hit, we're going to see 50, 60, 100,000 almost immediately. There's billions of dollars on the sidelines that's ready to flow in, and price is just going to absolutely skyrocket. And let's be frank, in the week since the announcement, that has been far from the case. We've gone from 49,000 down to 41,500, currently sitting in around 43. So we've had that pullback of, 10, 12, 15%. Maybe I'll have to get the thing out later on. And I think it's fair to say that this is not what the influencers would have liked you to believe was going to happen prior to the ETF announcement. If we have a look at the chart itself, what we can see, this is the one that I've always got on, which has got the lick level box, which I've got onto high block, and they are all still valid, so we don't need to try and digest those. But what we've had is this climb up, this spike here, which bust through and cleared out this short liquidity up here almost perfectly, tipped 49,000 before completely reversing, busting through that trend line. And at the moment, we're consolidating underneath it. And we've had 1, 2, and then depending on how today finishes, maybe 3 attempts to get back up, but certainly 2 rejections at the moment. Now, we've snaked along this before. We've also dumped below it before. So, we respect, well, I personally respect this trend line. We are the wrong side of it at the moment. So what we really want to be seeing is price action get above that. And I'd like to see it caterpillar up the other side of it rather than it just playing underneath. But unfortunately, we just have to wait and see how that happens. But if we do just get out that price tool, so from the top down to the bottom, yeah, it was, there you go, the mass is still with me. A 15% drop at the moment, and currently sitting in around 10%. Now, that wasn't on the cards. You could have asked any influencer on Twitter That wasn't on the card. So why has it happened? What caused that to happen? Why suddenly as the ETF hype just suddenly deflated, nuked, whatever you want to call it, and this is not a thing anymore, and we're now worried about what it can be. And I've already seen news articles talking about how BlackRock's already evil, and in a couple of months they're going to have hoovered up more BTC than MicroStrategy, and then what's stopping them from getting 51% of the networks and then just being able to totally manipulate the price? I mean, 96 hours ago, maybe 7 days ago, BlackRock were the heroes. They were, we couldn't speak highly of them. The amount of money that they were going to bring into the markets and the investor pools that they were going to offer Bitcoin to was just, unfathomable, because people were just caught up within the greed. And it just didn't turn out that way. But let's try and break it down on sort of a time basis of what happened. Because I think once we look at it from this point of view, we can actually get some indication of maybe where things were. And unfortunately for retail, it never works out for us, does it? So on the far left, this is on the 15-minute chart, and what you can or can't see because it's in the way, we've got the 10th, the 11th, and just the 12th. So we've got this sort of like 2-day, 48-hour period, which encompasses this block here on the left-hand side, which was the fake announcement the day before when we were live. We had this one in the middle, which is the actual announcement and the confirmation. And then we've got this one on the right. This one on the right is the most important one for me. This is when the ETFs actually went live. So we've had the move up on the fake news, retrace back down. Not very happy with how the market gone. Nice bit of consolidation. It's built back up, and you can see the announcement actually happened. If I get my arrow here, this white, this red here is when the announcement came live. There's a lot of speculation in the 15-minute candles leading up to it. There's a lot of people saying that I think the likes of Reuters and Bloomberg TV and a lot of us had gone live, if you will, with the confirmation that they had seen the SEC had approved it. The SEC itself didn't announce it on their website until just before 9:30 that day, UK time, obviously. And immediately we saw that rally off the news of it. So that was that sort of like blow off top, the pressure, the nervousness, in my opinion, of the fake news caused an initial blow off top, but not a huge amount. I mean, that's the reality of it. From there to there, we only saw a 5% increase. And we talked about this for a couple of weeks beforehand that, is this a buy the rumor, sell the news event? Has the price of the ETF already been priced in? Now, yes, there's nervousness about it, as we could see the night before, and we saw the price up there, but generally we didn't see that large spike that we were expecting. And, after the market makers had convinced everyone that price had gone up enough, we then started to see price reverse. Now, I don't have the market maker indicators on here, but let me assure you the majority of these candles at the speed that they went up were probably vector candles. And then all that's going to happen is we're going to recover it. And let me just get rid of these arrows. That's what we can do. We kind of regurgitate the same TA over and over again, but it does work, just from eyeballing it. I'll zoom in now. We've had that move up, and it's pulled back to the 05 level, 50% retracement, right back to there. I mean, yes, it fell away further again, but in the hours afterwards, that sharp move up and then a pullback, 50% retracement. The market makers went for a bit more. As we're looking into sort of Asia closing on January 11th, it dumped back down. And then what did we see? We saw London and New York reverse that. And we'll see where we go with this. I'll just, why can't I select this? There we go. Get rid of that now. And so we had the news. It cooled off overnight. Asia brought it back down. And we had sort of when London opened, sort of 9 o'clock, we've then had this move up. The speculation now, because we knew they were going live. We knew they were going live on Thursday, but they hadn't gone live. But people were then starting talking about the billions on the sideline. They were waiting to be priced back in. And so everyone started getting excited. Everyone started front running it, thinking this is it. This is where we're going to get to. And for those of you on the trading pub, we were live when it got to 49,000. And I thought, this is it. We moved up pretty fast. I thought, okay, 49,000. Next area of liquidity, psychological level is 50K. Are we going to see it? Are we going to see those those tweets all over the internet, 50K again. But no, markets opened here. Wrong thing. Where's my big arrow? It's been like there, it is, arrow marker. Markets opened here, or here. What happened? Yeah, okay, a quick move up on the 15-minute to get everyone excited, and then a real correction all the way back down. And that was it. You know, this is the opportunity that those that had the opportunity to take profits could. ETFs were open. We did actually see a lot of liquidity come in, but we saw even more profit being made, profit being taken, or potentially moved into other assets, and the price moved down. And since then, it's just not looked back. We've continued on this just bleed out to price. Just before markets close again on Friday, it comes all the way back down. I've had the weekend to consolidate. And I should have moved off the 15-minute chart, but effectively, since that moved down, all we've done in here, I know we've had a couple of spikes down and recoveries, but we've just ranged. We've just ranged at the moment. And when you look at it now, from this point of view, you can kind of see this really probably was a sell the news event. I mean, if I put it on the daily, it's going to look pretty ugly now because everything's there. But we actually indicate, I think it was the end of October. The end of October? I think it was the end of October. It might have been the 16th, but somewhere around here, we had the delay. And then we've just built up. Rumor. It's announced, sell off. That's it. And people laugh saying this won't be a buy the rumor, sell the news event. But it turns out that may exactly be what it is. Now, unfortunately for the ETFs, it's a matter of timing. They launched just at the wrong time. Why do I say that? Well, the market was overbought. We were at high levels of greed. We were overdue a correction. We hadn't touched the 50 EMA in nearly 90 days. You know, there was just something that needed to give. The ETFs was an excuse, a news event, in which the market makers could punish retail greed, in my opinion. And that's what they did. And now we've gone 49 down to 41, 15% recovery of the price. And we'll talk about where we are with the EMAs a little bit later on. But I drew a chart up, which I'm going to show you in a bit. And I forgot to use it a couple of weeks ago, which is actually to my benefit now, because this has happened plenty of times before. And it's nothing to necessarily be afraid of. Okay, we might have deflated the ETF balloon a little bit, but there is still a giant balloon there, okay? This ETF for the medium to long term is going to be a brilliant vehicle to bring liquidity into the market. And it's a case of, yeah, okay, we are an ant taking on a Rottweiler, potentially. So we don't want to be fighting it too much, but there's still opportunity for us there. And the same thing happened with gold. The gold ETFs put a lot of speculation in what that was going to do for the price of gold. And actually, you'll be surprised at what happened in the immediate aftermath. So for those of you, I just put this on here just so you can see the dates yourself. But effectively, the two ETFs I'm going to talk about, the first gold ETF came out in 2003. And it was on the Australian stock exchange. It was over in Australia. And then the United States was in 2004. So I actually thought they would have been a lot earlier than that, but that's where they are. They're sort of roughly 20 years old. Now, if we go and have a look at the gold charts, so the size of the circle doesn't necessarily matter. It's just to draw your attention to where they are. So 2003, it's the beginning of 2003. Look, we had the speculation for 12 months before and it was happening, it built up. The day the ETFs launched, and what do we have? We had a pullback for a couple of months. I'm trying to get the range up so we can kind of show you. I mean, I'm doing spike to spike to make it dramatic here. We had about a 20% pullback over 3 months. Then it built up and off it went. Similar thing happened with the gold ETFs for the US. So let's just get rid of this now. And hopefully you've seen the Australian circle. We move now to the gold one. It's a little bit bigger. So off the back of the Aussies doing so well, the US would, got everything going to say, right, well, we want to get on board within this. And again, now the US are taking this seriously. It's going to be huge for the market. So built up, built up, built up. Yeah, we had a couple of pullbacks, built up, crescendo, launched, comes back down. I know these don't look like particularly big corrections. That's a 12% correction there. But the point I'm trying to make is actually the immediate aftermath for the next couple of months have seen price correct because they are, by the rumors, sell the news events. And those who were already in it and already had profit, and already had stake in the game, wanted to take some profits off the back of the news event. And that's exactly what they did. Now, in the long term, we have a look at what it did to gold. And those pullbacks are insignificant. We're talking the first one. I shouldn't have deleted that circle now. Down here, went from 300 to 300. So 370 to 320. And now we're over 2,000. So, 20 years worth of ETFs have just driven that price up. And that's why I say long term, fantastic for us. Medium term, still think there's going to be some great benefit for us. The short term, though, actually, we may not see the price doing what every single YouTube influencer is going to tell you, that we're going to get to 100K. Actually, what we might see is a bit of correction, is a bit of profit taken, is a bit of reallocation from those who are already in the game, moving it into something else which they speculate will do better over the short term. But for the ETFs, they're stuck with Bitcoin. So we always know there's going to be a market and an appetite for it. It's now just about being patient and taking it in. I'm not necessarily saying we have to wait 20 years just to get a 5x, because we know cryptos is like the stock exchange, but on steroids. So 5x's are kind of things we talk about over months, not over years. But yeah, it's interesting how that plays out and how that's done that on two, gold, not a small commodity precious metal, large news-driven built-up events driving it, led to a pullback immediately afterwards. Same can be said for where we're going here. So, where am I going here? What was this chart for? I'm not necessarily sure what this chart was for. Okay, well, seems it's there. Well, let's talk about the other bit. So that that's the Bitcoin ETF hype. I think we may have it cool down for a little bit as we start to come to terms with exactly where retail and institutions fit within this, where the price needs to fit to sort of rebalance itself before its next move up, because we've got another hype cycle just around the corner, which we'll touch on in a moment, which is going to take all of our attention. So it's kind of fitting that now that we've achieved ETF hype, just brush that bad boy under the carpet. We've got other things to hype the market on. We've got other news to stimulate that FOMO, to get people excited. And that's what we need to focus on. And that's what the market makers do. That's my opinion, how the markets have driven. Market makers will find a news event to get behind and then move the market the way they want to based off that news event. Okay. One thing we've spoken about for weeks, months is this, the blue line, the 50 EMA. We're on the daily chart at the moment. And since the 16th of October, we hadn't touched 50 EMA. I don't know, this candle on Kraken, let me change this. That spike didn't exist on any other chart. I don't want it to let's just get rid of all these drawings. I'm going to regret this, but remove. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Don't want to be telling you a story and then the evidence proving me otherwise. But here we are. We're on the Bitstamp chart, which is the one I always use because it goes back for pretty much the longest data, certainly from an exchange. 16th of October, and we never touched it. And I've been talking about the fact that we haven't retested the 50 EMA is telling me that it needs to correct to it. And I've said a couple of times, it may be a case, instead of a sharp move down, Bitcoin ranges and allows the EMA to catch up. And that's exactly what happened. Matter of fact, I do remember we had an Avenger call in around here and I was talking about my risk reward. Where do I want to get in at? And I kind of said to you, for me, although it's at 38,000, I don't want to get in here because we haven't touched the EMA in a long time and it may pull down. And I accept that I may have to look at an entry around about 42,000 if that's how long it takes before the price gets up. And there we go. After 88 days, we actually did, end of last week, have a retest of the 50 EMA. And it was at 42k. So, you know, for those of you that last bought 27,000, well done. Perfect. It's retested it now. Doesn't guarantee that we're going to stay above it, but that has been satisfied. We have had the retest. We actually, on Sunday, had a close below it. And I thought, oh, that's the first time we've closed below it, you know, since October. But yesterday, we saw that ball back up almost immediately. And actually now, you can kind of see today's price action. We've retested it, but we are remaining above that. But the fact is, we have retested it. So all of those concerns around retesting the EMA, they're done. And we respect the 50 EMA. You know, we know it has these journeys away from it, but it always comes back. And that's it. That's it. We can accept the jumps. This has been a particularly long jump, and I kind of you know, put this in relation to skimming a stone, I suppose, across a lake. You know, that first distance, hopefully, is quite a long distance. But the longer it is, you're going to find that what we may have is a couple more retests of this. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll drop through. Some of them do, but some of them do get to the other side. But what I'm saying is, I'd be amazed if this was the only retest of it. I think what we might see is just, you know, spurts up or down, smaller gaps, but it will keep on retesting a bit as it just finds a bit more stability in and around that area. And because we've ranged for so long, we've actually almost pretty much flatlined. So this isn't really going to move too far up or down in the near future. And so, yeah, so we could just see ourselves catching our breath and ranging in and around there. But hey, we've done it. We've made it, which is great to see. What has been interesting, though, is the fear and greed index, because last week we were riding high. Matter of fact, we crossed into extreme greed. That was the warning, wasn't it? Extreme greed. We don't know when it's going to happen, but this ain't a good place to be, because this typically means the price is going to correct. And ETFs were approved. You know, let's face it, the greed was based off the ETF hype. It was approved. We've had that correction. And then the correction in the fear and greed, I thought was pretty shocking, to be honest with you. Because it did initially drop from 76 down to 52. Today, oops, it has corrected to 64. But it did drop a long way. So you can see here, there's them all. 76, we went down to 52, we're now sitting at 64. But that's a big correction. I still say that kind of just shows you what emotion and nervousness there is in the market. And that's likely driven, I mean, I could go on to Glassnodes and have a look, but that's likely driven to the fact that a lot of people have bought high because they've been suckered into the FOMO, sort of, you know, plus 40,000, and those short-term wallet addresses increase. I bet you, if we went in, is an uptick. The amount of recently made Bitcoin wallet addresses is probably up, whereas, you know, in bear markets and everything else, you kind of see that actually it's the ones that have been around for ages that have remained dormant and don't do anything. I reckon now there's been people making new wallets. More people have been brought to the market because of the FOMO, and they're buying Bitcoin. And then it's gone down, and they're not battle hardened like we are. Yeah, they've not been through Terra Luna, Celsius, FTX, banking crises, SEC. You know, they've not been through any of that. So the first sign of it, they get nervous, and the fear and greed drops sharply. And if we do scroll down, this is a crap chart. There's nothing I can do about it. Because when I hold on to this one, I do get 76. But when I push down to this one, it says 64. Oh, there we go, 52. So you can kind of see, come on, do it again. You can kind of see we had that consolidation there. It's bust back down. Now, if you were to chart this, and I'm not going to chart it, but it does hit a nice little bit of support there. Potentially, you can see why there was a bounce. But it's all now, is that just a dead cat bounce? I'm getting into too much charting on something I said I wasn't going to chart. Read into it how you will. But a sharp correction there. Interesting to see. I think, for me, when we look at where we were in these extreme greeds, we do see corrections. But what we don't tend to see is it immediately come back and start building again. We see big drop-offs. Okay, big drop-offs, big drop-offs. I think potentially that's where we may be looking at for ourselves. Just having a look over. No one's told me I'm quiet, and I'm either stunning you all and nobody's typing, or you've all already disappeared. Who knows? Right. So let's have a look at a few other things. Because we talked last week about the bearish divergence. Maybe we've had our first sign that we've broken it. So I've just put them in circles just so you can see where they were. Now you could argue, potentially, there's another one here. Just there. A little teeny tiny one. Could be there. I didn't want to draw that on until I brought it to your attention. Let's just change it to white. Doesn't really matter. Potentially, because that was still a higher point. So we've had it going up and up. Well, this has gone down and down. We've then broken down with the RSI. And it's on the daily. The price has actually gone with it. And so it's gone down. Now, what we need is price to find some sort of area and then to correct back down. Because what could happen, remember everybody, is we could now see a spike up to 50,000. This could spike all the way up to 60 and it's still be forming that bearish divergence. So we don't have confirmation that it has broken down, but we've started to see that price has broken down. It's broken through levels previously before. We just now need to start printing a lower high here, preferably, and then a correction back down, and then this one playing out. Or it then playing ball again and going up along that way. So it's definitely something to monitor, but we have now started to see that break. We talked about you can't time these things, but there's something to respect, and they do generally indicate that a reversal of some sort, doesn't necessarily mean that there's a 40% reversal on the cards, but a reversal of some sort is on the cards. And maybe we're now starting to see that play out. Maybe next week we might have a better idea of where that one's going. But if we have a look at the RSI and the stochastic RSI on the weekly now, which is one we've been following since October, this one is interesting because last week we finally broke back through the 70. That's what we were waiting for, if you remember. That's what we were looking at. We were riding high in overbought territory. We weren't going to get too excited, even if it was in the downtrend, until we broke below 70 level. We're now kind of in that 70 to 30 kind of no man's land, and we have broken through it. Now, okay, it has upticked. We don't count this candle or this uptick yet because it's 5 days left for it to print. So as we last saw it, it printed at 66. What we can also see from the stochastic, it's okay. So the orange is now on top of the blues. The blue's the fast one. That's moving down. We've also broken the 80 level, and we're continuing in a downward trajectory. So the momentum is also to the downside. Now, we look back at history when we break through these on the weekly, it does lead to corrections, multi-week corrections, I should add. This is potentially what we may be starting to see the start of. So, we talked about the ETFs, the gold ETFs announced corrections a couple of months. We're now talking about Bitcoin, and it's had its ETF announcement, but actually a lot of indicators are potentially saying that we are now looking at a multi-week correction. And we not talked about what we did last week. I didn't get up, but for those of you who were on the call, we had the fib charts, from the top to the bottom, and we had the can't remember which way around it was now, 712 or I think it was at 48,000. We talked about how in previous cycles it hit that and then had a rejection. If you remember, it did it here. What did it do? It hit that one perfectly. Okay, I say perfectly. It went up just slightly above it, but it closed below it, so it hit that level. Are we now starting to see that rejection? Will we now see on the weekly it post a couple of rejections? We're going to see history repeat itself once again. And, that's, when we line those up, I don't know why I said, 3 times. When we line those up, we do actually seem to have quite a bit of evidence right now that's stacking towards potential correction. And that's where I'm sitting. That's where I've sat for a few weeks now. I've not aped into buying any new tokens yet, or any Bitcoin, nor have I really sold anything. I did sell my Matic, and if I was live on the call, I wouldn't have done that, but I have sold my Matic. Anyway, leave that one the way it is. And yeah, I'm just waiting to see whether or not we get that pullback. I'm waiting for these to confirm. Now, again, it's a weekly chart. It takes a while for it to correct, but if we are going to see actually price increase, we're going to see this break back above the 70. I'd like to see the blue cross over the orange here, work its way back up. Similarly on the daily, when we have a look at this. So RSI, I mean, on the daily, the stochastic is already at oversold, if you will, or it's run out of downward momentum. So there's potential for it. The blue has crossed over. But again, we don't get excited until it crosses the 20, because it could just bounce along a little bit before it does it. But the RSI, I'd like to see this one climb back up here, and then price, you know, for me, it has to clear 49. And so that's where we're at. But if you do have a look at some of these price actions, and sorry to jump back down to this chart here, because we didn't really go through it. But if you have a look at where price is and where the liquidity levels are, this one's dead. We can get rid of that, because that actually happened last week. But let's face it, we're closer to 39.4 than we are, well, than we are even to where we got to before, 49,000. You know, we're only 4,000 away down here, but we're 6,000 away up here. So, and we're below this trend line. You know, for me, the sort of higher favored move, without any news to drive it, is actually that we are going to go down and potentially tickle this. Certainly the 40,000 level. You know, some people have talked about, are we still ranging in this rectangle, in bullish rectangle? Well, we haven't touched the bottom of that. Well, even if you do it from the base of the candles, we haven't. But if you did it from the wicks, I'd be wanting it to 40.5 to get down there. So I think there's still room based on this for it to drive. And when you do look at high block, when you look at the colors now, you zoom in, the amount of, you know, bullish behavior, the amount of long liquidation levels. Look at the colors. Remember, the brighter it is, the more there are. It's much deeper, much brighter to the south of the price action, where longs have been placed because everyone's been bullish for so long, than it is to the north, to the, you know, the shorts. People are pretty much scared to play shorts at the moment, and they've taken a while to build up. And I just think, you know, for me, this is where the market maker is probably looking. This is what they're going to see as an opportunity. Whether we get all the way down to that 33 level, I don't know. If we did get down to 33, I would consider that the correction. I'm not saying it's the end of the correction, but we've talked in previous calls about, you know, in all of these sort of consolidation years, we do have some sort of correction. We've had one at the moment around about 20%. That doesn't feel like that's enough. We've had some as deep as 50%, 40%, 30%. Taking it all the way down to 33,000 would be about 30%. That would feel right to me, to get to that. And that's where I'd take advantage. And if it went lower, I'd either have to, you know, pull the cushions off my sofa and see if I could find any loose change down there, or just accept that it's gone lower for a shorter time. Sorry, for a short period of time, and just ride that out. But these are the areas that I'm really targeting, which is why I'm for the moment sitting on my hands. Not sure what that one is, but we talked about the ETF narrative is over. But I tell you, it's not going to be long. We're 92 days away from the halving. Okay, April 20th. I've refreshed this a few times today. This date seems to be sticking. As we get closer, we can shore that up a little bit. We've got to get to 840,000 blocks, and we're at 8. Well, I didn't refresh this. Let's refresh it. Don't know if it's running live. Yeah. Okay. So we're at 826057. I can't do the maths in my head. Blocks remaining. I don't need to. 13,943 remain. Okay. So this will be the next narrative. This is what you're going to hear, that after the halving, that's when price really starts to move. And it's true, but it doesn't move immediately. And as we get closer to this, we'll dissect this a little bit clearer. We'll have a look at what happened in 2016, in 2020. But yeah, that's when it goes. And this has always been the focal point of the 4-year cycle, especially in the news cycle of the 4-year cycle. It's the hype and the FOMO around the halving. And that's going to start to build. It would have been building, in my opinion, the last couple of weeks, certainly as we breached 100 days, if it wasn't for the ETF news. This last week, we've been given a reprieve, I think, as people are dissecting what's happened with the ETF. But now that is out of the way, this is what's going to be causing the next bit of FOMO. And this typically is a buy the rumor, sell the news event, especially because it's such an anticlimax. Like, you know, a lot of new people to the market think something's going to happen. There's fireworks in the sky or whatever. Nothing happens. Okay. It literally ticks over. Bitcoin just plods along as if nothing had happened. everything resets. This goes back to like, I don't know, 1800 days or whatever it is going to be. That's far too many. 1600 days, whatever it's going to be. And this all kind of resets, and then we just go from there. And yeah, I think people are like, oh, right, was that it? Okay, well, try and take advantage of that. But this will be the next hype. This will be the next hype. There's nothing in its way. Even the Ethereum ETF is after this stage. But then when we look at it on this, which chart was I on? This chart. And we plot that. I just realized I'm on a stag do. If that is the date, I'll be on a stag do. That should be interesting. Yep, 20th of April. That's when it's projected at the moment, and that really isn't that long. It's the same time, effectively, in the gap between Bitcoin not touching the 50 EMA to when it retouched it. That was 88 days. We're at 92. That's what we're talking about. So we don't have much time. But what is interesting with a lot of this is, let me get a clean chart. Otherwise, it's going to be too messy. Sorry if I'm jumping around speaking a bit fast. Hopefully you're still all there with me. Let me just draw this back on. Let's make it a bit thicker so we can see it. Or, sorry, let's just make it a line. Okay. Let's get rid of the EMA. Don't need that right now. Shall we clean? I'll put it on the weekly. So, the one thing that is interesting for me on this is we've normally had this correction by now. So, if you look at previous, so it was right, I can't remember the exact date, sometime in May. Let's just say it was then. And then this one was July 16. I think it was this one. So you can see in previous ones, corrections actually occur before, major corrections occur before the halving. We haven't really had that. And that's what is interesting, because I would, are we running out of time? For this to play out exactly like a 4-year cycle has previously, and I appreciate things rhyme rather than follow on exactly. But this isn't that many weekly candles. It is, in fact, including this one. Oh, not including this one, apparently. Including this one. We're only talking about 13 weeks, 13 weeks. Which is not that long to have the correction and then potentially recover from it. Now, okay, we didn't, we had this correction here, it came back up, and then we re-corrected. Maybe that's what we're looking at. Maybe this cycle is going to be a lot similar to the sort of 2016-17 cycle than it is the 2020. Maybe that's how we see it. So maybe we will just have one blow off top as well. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But we are running out of time for this correction to happen, consolidate, and then allow the FOMO to kick in and through to the EF. So, but again, we have so few data points. Maybe it's just a new one that will mold itself roughly around these timeframes. But every other time we have seen a correction happen, the sizable corrections happen prior to the halving. If it happens after the halving, well, we may just see that it might take a little bit longer to recover, or what actually happens is, I know this felt parabolic in 2021. Maybe it's an even straight line to get us up to the top a little bit later on, just to keep us on track within that 4-year window and sort of looking at the back end of 2025. But that's something that I want to monitor and have a look at. And the only other thing I want to talk about, because we talked about BTC for quite a while now, is just this candle here. Let's just get rid of this last one. We don't want that. Last week's candle, how it closed. I mean, there's a high test and a half there. That's a lot of selling pressure that came back down. Now, it's not like a full-blown reversal candle or anything like that. What I would have preferred for that to happen was the body to be much closer to sort of the base. This has got quite a bit of meat within the body. But that is clearly showing that there's a hell of a lot of sell pressure there. The week before, there was a decent amount of sell pressure as well. And so again, are we potentially looking at some form of reversal being announced to us? And it's the weekly charts. It takes a while. And again, if you were to just have a look at this week's candle, you'd be like, nah, ranging, it's recovered. We've still got 5 days of this candle. Never mind the fact that actually it may come back down. And there's I remember where it was now. No, I should have had it prepped. I'll look into that. We'll talk about that a little bit closer. But that's definitely something that I'm monitoring. It's definitely something I noticed when the candle closed on Sunday night. And it's something that I'm certainly keeping my eye on. I mean, what I will say, from a positive point of view, because I do feel like I've been particularly negative BTC at the moment, is when you look at it the weekly, you try and take all of that out. It is, since beginning of December, we are just consolidating with the bodies within this range, 41 to 44, and this week and last week has been effectively no different. And so, maybe this is just consolidation before another leg up. And what we're going to see is, a bit more of this play out, and then that way. It would be lovely. It would be. But we shall see with that one. Okay, let's just close that down there. Have a quick sip of water, and then move on to a couple of questions, and then we'll try and chart some other ones. Then after that, we might call it quits. Okay. So Himal's put, I have some SOL that is now back in profit. What's your view on SOL in this bull market? I'm thinking of using it to switch into an alternative coin. And I do believe there's room for growth in SOL over the next 12 months. Or would I be better switching to another coin that is likely to outperform it? There's a couple of questions within that you kind of need to digest. I'm going to get this off because it's blinding. Let's bring up SOL. I don't know if I track SOL anywhere. We don't. What do I think of SOL whilst I'm just bringing it up? So SOL's one of those ones that absolutely caught me out. I suppose I got caught up in the old FTX FUD within that. And from a fundamental point of view, and I haven't followed it at all through 2023 because I gave up on it. But I remember in the last bull run, it kept on breaking down. So it kept on stopping. So there were definitely some things, but for all I know, that could have been fixed. It has had a resurgence in price over the last, well, look at it. We were $18 back in October. We're at 90 now, so almost a 5x from there. And there's a couple of things that you could argue that's based upon, which I did talk about a couple of weeks ago. With that being airdrop farming, it's very popular a few months there, and that hype certainly drove the price up. There were rumors that the administrators, whatever they call them in the US for FTX, were offloading a lot of FTX's souls because they were looking at starting compensation, if nothing else than to pay the legal fees because they're astronomical. So that could have happened. There were private wallets that were selling some as well. So so certainly it's certainly been a lot of news around that, which potentially has led to the price. I don't want to say artificially, because when you look at this, I've got the 21 and the 50 here, and it's pretty well respected, the 21. 50 is almost come down and touch. I mean, we could almost call that a touch point. Just probably the one individual chart that I brought up. So I think it has done well. In terms of what it is, a layer one, it's top 4 cryptos out there, maybe top 5. It's well known. It's it's got a decent ecosystem within it. A lot of applications that are built off the back of it. This is a token that, in my opinion, is not going to go away. So absolutely, do I believe there's growth in SOL over the next 12 months? Yes. But there's a however with that, because you asked a secondary question, which is likely to move to another token, which is likely to outperform. And that's the big question, isn't it? Is yes, okay, SOL may continue to go up, but how far can it realistically go up? And are other tokens got a better chance of going up further? Maybe not having as big a market cap, but that market share increase being a greater increase than what SOL has. And it's interesting because we've got a cuddle in 2 weeks, and I think I'm going to do something a little bit different in this cuddle, and I'm going to focus quite a bit on sort of how much tokens might be able to move up. And so I haven't worked out if it's going to work in a live environment, or if it's just going to be a bit noddy. But because I was thinking about that, it kind of got me thinking where we are with SOL. So what we can do is we can have a look. Right? So we've gone to CoinMarketCap. Here's Solana. Solana's number 5. Okay, so at the moment, it's currently sitting at $42 billion. Okay, 42 billion. Overall market is, I should have that on top end, 1.7 trillion. All right, can't work that out, but it's probably around about 2.5%, I think, of the market share. The question is, where can it go from here? And how do we work that out? So what we've got to do is we've got to have a look at where we think the overall market cap is going to be. What percentage share is the Solana going to be able to maintain or improve into during that? And that will give us a rough idea of where it's going to go, which then gives an idea potentially what it's got left to achieve. And the interesting thing of this is, if we had done this in October, this difference in the figure that I'm going to tell you is astronomically different. But the reality is Solana's already had a 5x, okay? So that means that these next numbers, I'm not going to be throwing out a 20x here for Solana, because that's probably not possible. Because it's in the last 3 months, it's already done a 5x. So the 20x from here would have been 100x from where it were a few months ago, which is taking it into the trillions. So let's just roll that one out straight away. But what I do like to do is we are going to have to play around with some figures. I don't normally like doing this, and this is why I'm wondering whether or not it's a good thing. But we need to, sorry, just Tom saying, looking good, Harry. You have obviously been drinking. We need to have a look at where we think the market cap is going to be next time around, the overall crypto market cap. Now, we could pull out any number, couldn't we? We could say it could achieve what it did last time, just under 3 trillion. We could say it's going to go astronomically, it's going to be 12 trillion. All hail BlackRock. Or we just have to pull an arbitrary number. So I know a lot of you have sort of taken a lot of these figures from the trading pub calls, and that 5 trillion mark has been thrown around. So I think let's just use 5 trillion as an arbitrary figure for where we think at peak bull run, that's where the overall market cap's going to be. Now we need to start diving and cutting that up. I'm sorry if this is a bit long-winded to answer your question. But Bitcoin, you can go into CoinMarketCap and you can have a look at Bitcoin dominance. It's a great one to use and fantastic for you using Sol, because it actually features on this chart. Now, back in the day, you used to be able to blow this up to full screen, and I can't do that now because I'm obviously computer literate. So it is what it is. I'll do the figures, and then we'll go from there. So last bull run. Okay, so 2021, peak of the bull run, alt season. Where were we? 14th, there we go. So 14th of November. That's not a bad shout. Bitcoin was at 43%. Ethereum was at 20%. So let's just go 40%. Ethereum was at 20%. And Sol had 2.5%. I'm going to have to write these down. Can't write that much Charles' birth certificate. Write the notepad. So we had Bitcoin at 40. Let's just go 40%. ETH was at 20%. And Sol was at 2.5, okay? And that was when it was at 3 trillion. So we rolled, let's just use those figures, because what we need to understand is how much is Bitcoin going to soak up the market? Well, actually, we can have a look, because in the last bull run, it was around about, what was it here? Where was it? Where was peak? It's just there, 36. Okay, so I had a little bit more, but round about that 40 level. So between 35 and 40 is not a bad shout. Well, 40% of 5 trillion is going to be 2 trillion. Even I can do those maths. So we already know of the 5 trillion, 2 has gone. Another trillion has gone to Ethereum. So that's 3 trillion that's left. So we've only got 2 trillion left for every other altcoin that is out there. Okay, and that's when you start to realize that actually, how much is Sol going to eat up? Now, if it just stays where it is at the moment, it currently holds 2.5% market share, and that's what it held at the height of the last time. Then we've got to work out, well, what's 5 trillion? Oh, man, I should have to get my calculator out. I think it's going to be 120. Let's just have a look then. Sorry, let's just do this. 5 trillion. I have to calculate it sideways. You know it's bad when that happens. Times 0.025. 125. I should have backed myself. 125 billion. That's assuming it keeps its 2.5% market share. So 125 billion, and it's currently sat at 42 billion. It means from here it's only a 3x. We're talking around about $300 Sol. Okay, so that's actually only a 3x. So this is where you can then start to go, well, could have been a 15x if we'd done those figures based on exactly the same, but done it back in October before it had its meteoric rise. But it's already had it. So potentially there's only a 3x left within this, assuming biggest, and there's a lot of variables there, and that's why I'm not the world's biggest fan. But you've got to base it on something for you to make that calculation of whether or not you want to move on to something else. But what I would say is that's not a huge move, really. But let's go into Sol in a bit more detail. Let's see if we can have a look. I mean, you can take into account tokenomics and everything else, but I want to see what its previous all-time high was. So its previous all-time high was 260, so we will be eclipsing the previous all-time high. I was hoping it might have what its all-time market share was. Now, if Solana does, so then Solana is a layer 1, so it could also eat into some of Ethereum's market share. I appreciate that. So you could then do the same calculations, and I'm not going to do them for you, but do the same calculations and go, okay, well, what happens if it's going to be 3% or 4%? But be realistic with what it's going to be. There's so many altcoins out there, especially when you take away Tether, which Tether will have about 10%, I guarantee it. There's just not that much left to play with. So it's highly unlikely that Sol, out of the 30% or whatever that's going to be left over the entire market, is going to have 10% of that. Highly unlikely, because that leaves so little. So you just got to be realistic with what you think that overall market share is going to be. And then you can have a look at it. Okay, well, what are similar things to Sol that I could have a look and invest in? And we'll have a look at some of the ones that I'm looking at a little bit later on, and determine whether or not they're going to be a better option. They might have better opportunity to grow. And I think that's why this could be a very interesting exercise to do with people live. So they help me on stage and we try and compare and try and determine where we think some of these are going to go. Because I think a lot of people, they forget to readjust. They're always thinking about the 10x. If only at 10x's, only at 10x's. Well, unfortunately, we've already done a 5x. So you actually have only got, in your, I hope at 10x's, there's only a 2x left for you to do that. I hope that makes sense. Probably wasn't very well answered. I do think Sol will be around. Don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's got a pretty good ecosystem. But if there are other tokens that you're looking for, and they've got a smaller market cap and they're relatively new and they've got decent runway and a decent roadmap over the next couple of years, they could outperform Sol. Just my thought there. Someone asked me to have a look at what I was looking at. Well, I will do. I need a blank chart. Doesn't matter what. This one will do. Actually, what have I put them in? I have no idea which one I've put them in. That should be interesting. Okay. Let's leave it on this one. It might be here. Might be. So I've got a potential buy list. Not these ones. Just bear with me. I want to try and find the actual charts they're on, because if I do, then I have to relabel the charts a bit better, I think. You'll see that actually, it's not that, it's definitely not that one. I've actually indicated buy levels. I think that would just make a lot more sense. Just sorry, just have to bear with me while I try and find them. Not any of these. In and out of the market. I should, like I say, should have renamed these a little bit better. No, not those. I would say talk amongst yourselves, but you'll just have to stuff in science. So one of the problems with having a, I've done that one. Potential buy levels. There's a whole chart is written about them. You could have spotted that one, Harry. Come on. Okay, here we go. So I've got a few charts that kind of look a little bit like this. And these are some of the tokens that I'm looking at. Now, some of them you may already be in, but some of them I'm not, or I still want to improve where I'm going to, how big my pot size is going to be. So Asta is one that I've been looking at. It's very similar, I suppose, to Moonbeams on the Polkadot ecosystem. One that I never got in at, but you can see it's had a hell of a move up. And this one I've not drawn on because I don't think I'm going to get in on this one unless it has an uber correction. Because as you know, as with Sol, we've already gone from 4 to 16, so we've already 4x'd. So now that doesn't always necessarily mean it's a problem, especially with some of these newer ones. But I want to get in. I want a good price to get in. I've got a limited amount of money. I don't intend to hit every single one of these. But potentially, I'd like to. BeamX, I'd like to add to it. So BeamX is currently in a buy zone that's been identified by me and someone else in the group. We got a little call together and pulled these through, and I've done things like fib levels. But you can see when I've drawn this, there's actually a few buy levels down here is when I'd actually like to. This is where if it consolidates within here, you know, I should be buying. But if price does start to correct and everything comes down, these are the levels in which I'm targeting to move some money into it. So Beam, I think a lot of you know what Beam is. That's fine. Nakamoto Games is a gaming platform, if you will. Again, I think this one is an ideal opportunity. It's just outside of my buy zone at the moment, but it is trending downwards. So I'm just monitoring how that goes. I think it might get down to $1, and then I'll start to look to buy. And these ones, I should probably remember a different color, maybe a poo emoji, because these are my what I'd call stink bids right down the bottom. If it really dumps, I'd like to try and pick up a bit there. Sia, it's another layer 1, relatively new. It's got quite a bit of hype around it at the moment. It's pretty high, so and potentially overextended. And so I am looking for some form of correction, but I think it's definitely worth there. OLAS is one that I can't remember who mentioned it in the group. It might have been Greg. Apologies if it wasn't. OLAS is an AI-based sort of agent platform. It's got some funky tokenomics, which initially put me off getting into it, but I am sort of seeing some sort of double topping pattern here. So I'm waiting for a correction. I don't know why these ones haven't stayed, but I had it drawn around about 4.5. Is where I'd like to go. Injective, I don't think I'll ever get back into this one, and or into this one, should I say? It does have a big token unlock coming up in a couple of days, but for me, it needs to consolidate. It's flown up. If it ever gets down to these, I'll buy. If it doesn't, hey, good luck for everyone that got in on it. I missed the boat. Bet AI, I think it's a really good one. I got a large buy zone down there. This is another AI-based one. I did a talk on it beginning of last year. It's got another sort of like agent. When I talk about agent, I'm talking about programmable AI that go out and do a job. So an estate agent will buy you a house for you. A travel agent will book everything that is to do with travel. Just imagine that, but in the AI kind of world. It's pretty good. It's British-based, based out of Cambridge. Already got some use cases, the train networks, etc. I think this one could be really big. Small cap. Good opportunity. So again, buy zones down here. If anyone's really interested, I'll put them in Discord. We got fifth, which is this a Solana airdrop? I can't actually remember. Someone will be able to correct me. This has gone through into the buy zone. I got greedy here because it's relatively new, because it was airdropped to a lot of people, and I was waiting for it to drop down, and I just never really paid attention. And it's actually gone through my buy zone. So it's out the other side of it now, so I've got to wait for it to come back in. Mina, which I talked about, done a video about. I like this one. It's another layer 1. It's a blockchain. It's the smallest blockchain. The size of the entire blockchain is the size of a tweet, but it's actually more than that. It's a fairly decent project, but again, a little bit too high. So you can kind of see where they are. Hedra Hashgraph or HBAR. I don't actually really know too much about this, but I know it's got a lot of hype, and I've seen people that I respect in the crypto space talk about this very favorably with a lot of future, and they talk about some of the projects and some of the roadmap that's coming along. It kind of feels silly not to be in it, but I don't want to ape in, so I've just given myself, again, some buy zones based on fib levels. And when I drew these, price was all the way up here. We're starting to see they are respecting these levels, so I'm pretty comfortable where they are. G-Swift, forget if G-Swift is like some form of betting now I think about it. Can't remember. This is the one that I'm probably least interested in getting in on when I sort of did some research on it. Still like it, but I'm absolutely staying on the sidelines unless it gets to 40 cents. Flux, another good one. Again, not paying attention. Creeped into my buy zone, and when I drew these, it was nicely back up here. And now it's gone out of the buy zone. and it went into the deep green buy zone, which is an absolute you must buy, and I didn't. So I'm hoping this is a bit of a dead cat bounce and we see it come back in. I get another bite of the cherry. And Rollbit. So Rollbit, the biggest problem I have with Rollbit is, and someone might be able to correct me in the chat here, I think you can only buy it on DEXs, and I just don't like it. I think it's Ethereum as well. So that the problem with that is I can buy it now for a long-term hold, and then by the time I want to get rid of it, if it hasn't moved on to a centralized exchange or some capability to bridge it onto another network, I'll probably have to pay some extortionate gas fee, which, as I only want to put a small amount in, you know, some of these maybe $1,000, $1,500 an allocation. I don't want to be wasting $600 cashing out any profit later on. I lost out to that a lot on the last bull run. So that one puts me off. And while I like the project, just where it from its tokenomics, I suppose, because it's limited DEX capability at the moment, it is putting me off. So it has to have a low buy for me. So I think, all right, well, I got it in at a really cheap price. I'll stomach whatever the gas fees are going to be and take it there. So can't remember who asked that one, but that's just a quick review of some of the ones I'm looking at. I've not pulled the trigger on any of those. So if you want to be kept up to date, you just have to let me know, and I will try and keep you as best up to date as I can. Right, let's have a look. China with a casual 120 billion stim today. There you go. Lovely. That's like a drop in the ocean, though. Bear in mind that there's several trillion circulating, so it could be to BTC, even migrating to layer 1s and layer 2s, then deep in oracles and degens such as mint coins. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that whole flow, I think, with BTC, Ethereum, stable, well-known altcoins, and then into dogshit coins, I think that's a pretty well followed route. What you might want to do to adapt that now is BTC, and then you can almost clunk Ethereum in with the likes of Solana, maybe even Polkadot. I mean, with Polkadot, that same exercise could be done. And you maybe look at the best you can get from that as a 10x, which is fine. 2x for me already, so 10x would be a 20x. I'd take that. But yeah, that's where you've got to take that move. Then migrate. You can push the price up with a token, burns, lockups, and staking. So that's very true. And we talk about sort of tokenomics, and it's why tokenomics is so important, especially token burns. Don't underestimate the power of token burns, especially on relatively new projects that maybe they didn't understand the tokenomics and they've realized they've got far too many. It's a quadrillion tokens, and then suddenly you see large regular token burns. That's actually a very good thing. It is fast deflationary tokenomics, just to try and stabilize and bring it back down. And I saw what was it called? I think it was like BRT. I wish I knew what it was now. Maybe it's in my search. No, it's not. I saw it because it's on my mobile. A crypto influencer. He's called That Martini Guy. You love him or hate him, doesn't necessarily matter. But he was talking about a token he had decided to invest in, and it's going from a 330 million tokenomics to a 30 million. They're going to burn 300 million of them. I've not looked into it any further than that. So, but the fact is, they realized that tokenomic model didn't work, so it's going to burn 90%, and it's just going to have that, which that's huge. There's already 22 million out. So suddenly, that goes from being less than 10% in circulating supply to the best part of 80% in circulating supply, which will have a huge impact on price of the coin, because obviously you've got to bear in mind that a lot of people do it market cap based on fully diluted circulating supply. I don't personally. I don't really care for that figure, but it's going to change that massively. So the point I'm trying to make while I'm rambling on is don't ignore token burns. Lockups and stakings, Tom, like you say there, that's definitely something to bear in mind if they have a long lockup period. If you can just unlock and stake within a couple of minutes, then it's good, because at the moment it shows that people have faith in the system. But if it starts to change and it's market sentiment changes either on the project or overall, you could probably watch those lockup figures drop back quite quickly. We saw that stuff with the rebasing DAOs. Harry, what do you think about what looks like an equal compression forming on CAS on the 1 to 12 hour. Let's have a look, because I was going to move on to these. So I'll come back to Bitcoin. Everyone likes to talk about CAS. So I thought I got rid of this last week. Let's just delete. So, going on to CAS, I mean, I'm going to say something controversial now. So don't shoot the messenger. But is CAS a meme coin? That's what I'm going to ask the question. That is homework for the week. Is CAS a meme coin? And that's not an excuse to go, Harry, stop hating on CAS. That's not it. I've got CAS. I've invested in CAS. But it's a token without utility at the moment. I don't care what people say about blocks per second and everything else. It doesn't really do anything right now. But it went viral, okay? It went viral. You couldn't watch crypto YouTube. You couldn't go on crypto Twitter without tripping over 15 posts about CAS. And it absolutely pumped. That was it. This was all just CAS pump. Everyone talking about it. It's gone quiet now. But if you look at what definition of a meme is, it's popular culture, a take on popular culture or some sort of viral content. And I question, are we stagnating at the moment because no one's talking about CAS anymore? Because you don't. I spend 8 hours a day on crypto YouTube or Twitter. I don't trip over it anywhere near as much. And I follow CAS accounts and I just don't see it that often now. And so I asked the question, without a utility at the moment, is CAS a meme coin? Now I'll go in to have a look at the price while you decide whether or not I'm talking out my ass. So you were saying on the 1 day and the 12 hour equal compression. So I suppose you've probably taken, I don't know, from this top here, something like that. Try and draw it out as far as I can. And then maybe that. Or if we took it from here. Oh, not that one. Like that. Maybe that's what you're looking at. I know the colors aren't great because let's just turn these off. Don't need them right now. I mean, it's definitely respecting, these two here, and it is coming towards it. It's just range. I mean, this would take another week to play off. Is it that? Ignore this spike down. It only happened on QCoin, which is where I follow. That's just where I've been buying mine from recently. So yeah, I can see that here. The problem with symmetrical compressions, you just don't know which way they're going to play out, especially this one because it's not tied to this top. You couldn't necessarily say it was part of a bull flag. This is like almost forming itself. I just linked it to that. Put it back there. But I mean, you take it on the daily. For me, it's just what's happened is we've had the topping pattern. Yeah. We've come back down. And to be fair, I just feel like we're just ranging in this at the moment. We may get back down to 10 cents. We kind of range between there. Needs to make up its mind on what it's going to do. Maybe market is market sentiment is going to take it down because the overall market sentiment. I stand by. I've still got some, and I've got buy orders at 8 and 7. I think bottom of here. And that's where I'm looking. That's what I'm looking to see if we can get in towards. So yeah, I mean, if we've started turning some of these back on now. It's just flirting with a 50. I mean, we've hardly left this 50 cloud. That's just it. It's perfect consolidation. You could argue that this is it catching its breath while the market resets and then off it goes. And you could say that maybe, we had a similar encounter with some sort of topping pattern here. And then it just sort of, well, I was going to do it there, but that's probably a bit pants example. Now look at it. So yeah, so I still have buys. There's nothing wrong with potentially owning meme coins. I just asked that question to be controversial, to maybe strike some comment in Discord as what people's views are. And I don't probably follow it as much as some of you guys that are really into it. So maybe it does have utility at the moment outside of everyone's just holding their breath for them to finish testing 10 blocks per second. But there's no real demand for the utility. Do we really need 10 blocks per second? Anyway, let's just leave that where that is. Just go back to BTC because that 50, that long awaited 50, we've gone there. It's a shame. We do have a vector candle here which typically will likely get recovered, and I could see as getting back up to that midway point, so that 44,000 before we get some sort of reversal. All I would say is between now and then, we are getting squeezed between the 50, the 10 and the 20, and we're kind of expecting it. But I think we see a move up at least to the 50% mark, and then wherever market goes, I can't get out of my head. I'm still thinking there's a correction needed. So of course, my psychological bias is down. Okay, so I thought it said it stopped recording, which would have been a disaster because I'd have to re-record it. Let's have a look. Thoughts on CAS at present? I think I just answered that. I consolidated some profits in signify. There we go. Nice. Grab some. I don't know what XI. What is this? That XAI. I hope it's an AI project. Only because of the name. What's on Arbitrum? Blockchain gaming. Actually, it's a gaming. Okay. To enable open trade in the next generation of video games. Potentially can own and trade valuable in-game items. Interesting. It'd be interesting to see what the games are on that. I definitely think there's a market. I've talked about CSGO weapons skins before. Someone unlocked one. I saw this on Twitter. Someone unlocked a skin for a gun that they reckon is worth $1 million. Don't know if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it. $1 million. I couldn't believe it. Where would it be? That's the question. But it just goes to show you that people are willing to pay this kind of stuff. This is it. This one, this one here. This gun here, after 10 years, it's one of a kind. I don't play CSGO, so it's one of a kind. Stat Track Factory new AK-47 pattern 661 blue gem has been found with an estimated value of $1 million, and there is a market for buying this stuff, which is just crazy. So, hey, in-game items, there's definitely a market for it. You've got to have the game and you've got to have the user base, but at some stage, people are going to cotton on, and I think that's going to be a thing. So, yeah, I'd like to look into that one a bit more. Bulbit is only on Uniswap. What do you think of CAS can do for me, considering it's already done a 35x? So this is it, isn't it? So to go back to CAS and to take that analogy I'd done with Solana. So we've had, exponential growth on Casper since its inception, which, all cryptos have. And we've, I know some numbers have been thrown around, sort of $12. Where do we get that from? And it's got to get up there. It's got to get into the, it's got to get into the top 10 to get to that kind of level. And it's got to eat in, that's what, 100 million, what is it? Let's do the maths. So let's just say there's 25 billion at the time of the next market. Wait a second. Million, yep, okay. Times 12. That's a $300 billion market cap. I mean, that's more than we're thinking Sol's going to be. So if you take that into a 5 trillion, that's like 6-7% of the market. This feels a lot. So yeah, it's done a huge. I put this on because I want to see how much it's done over all time. So it's done 64,000 in the last year. It's done 15,000. So 1,500%. Overall, it's done 64,000. Now, a lot of tokens have done that, but it's just, where can it go with what it's got to do? So to crack a lot of that stuff, yes, you can take tokenomics so far, but I think fundamentals have to come in. You have to understand, not only does it have to get to the top 10, it's got to push other ones down. So what is it doing that it can overtake? Now, okay, Shiba and Doge are in there, but they have a real cult-like following, and they have Elon, okay? That's what drives them up there. And it's still a layer one, isn't it? So, I'd still think, I think Casper can do well. I think, it could 10x. Why is $1 a bad mark? 10x from here, 30 billion, that'd take its market cap to. Well, if it was fully diluted, 30 billion. That's pretty impressive. That'd still keep it likely within the top 30, maybe even the top 20. And so yeah, but if I do this exercise, CAS will definitely be one of them, which we will try and have a look at. Tau has had a good day today. Yep, so we have a look at the chart now. So Tau has done well, 14% up, done a nice rise. Matter of fact, close here, and we've broken the downtrend. Oh, let me get the other chart up, Tau. So that's had a good one, but look what it's just run into. Come back and hit this 50, which it only hit this time last week. So it's not, what's it do here? Close above it, build support, go. Brilliant. If not, worry. What I would say is we've had a couple of bites now at this neckline, haven't we? So we've drawn shoulder, head, shoulder, neckline. We already had one Kobo to it. So does it really get a second Kobo? Or if it is it more of a double bottom playing into it? So I'm not sure if maybe the head and shoulders has played out. We just need to have a look at what price action is doing. But it has had a very good day. I'm not in it. Still out on the sidelines. Thankfully, it's under what I sold it for at the moment. But I was willing to take that risk, and I potentially might have been greedy. I did see it in the low 200s, so I didn't get to see it down this low. But I'm still of the opinion, if we correct with the market, this is coming down to 150. So I'm happy to wait. The Cambit case hardened blue gem. Owner turned down an offer of 1.5 million. Wow, there you go. So there's definitely a market for these skins. You get in there. Let's have a look at some other tokens people might not be interested in. I did have Sol. I'm trying to think of anything what there is that people might want me to talk about. I can't remember what Alzheimer's really in. I mean, let's have a look at ETH just because it's having that good move. It's having another nice push up now. So again, for me, after that move that happened back here, we're still respecting the 10. It's come back down. It's just playing off it, which it has done, the 10 and the 20. Caught on the 50, came back. So this looks like nice, healthy growth, which probably is indicating that we are in some sort of mini bull run at the moment. If we have a look at total 2, oops, that's not what I meant. If we have a look at the Bitcoin dominance, that's what I wanted. And so interestingly, Bitcoin dominance is ever so slightly up at the moment. Despite everything else being very green, Bitcoin's still a little bit green, but it's had it's gone from 54.5 down to 51. That's a fairly decent fall. Well away from these, and potentially, I mean, look at this. It looks like a lovely double bottom. Maybe seeing that. Head back up there. So this neckline is almost at, that's drawn not too long. This neckline for this double bottom is almost at the 50% retracement level. The 50% on this vector candle is pretty much at the 50 EMA as well. So I kind of feel like Bitcoin may be looking to try and reclaim a bit of that. So maybe we see altcoins suffer over the next week or so as this one tries to reclaim some of its glory. Just going down onto here, if you can see on the bottom of my chart, I've got a lot of the dominances here. It's kind of a useful indication to have because when we talk about market cap, this is it. ADA has 1%, BNB has nearly 3%, BTC currently has 50%. So I'm talking about where they are. This is what you're currently sitting with. And I don't have sols on there, but it'll be easy to add. Sol.d, just add it down the bottom, so 2.5. And so you can use these to sort of help plot that picture of where things are going to go. And, unfortunately, the bigger it is at the moment, the less it's going to move. Not in terms of price, I'm talking in terms of market cap dominance. Unless something amazing happens, or if BNB dies, something's going to have to swallow that up, and it may well be. It'll probably be another exchange, but I'm sure other altcoins within the top 10 will have a fair share of it. But you can kind of see where that coming is. You can build a picture of almost a pie chart, if you will, of how the market is broken up. And you can see, well, the ones that have really small percentages at the moment, they're fighting against other ones with really small percentages, and they can eat those up relatively quickly. If you've already got a rather large piece of the pie, it's much difficult to do because you're going against the likes of, USDT, you're going against Ethereum, you're going against BTC. They're harder to move. So there we go. BMX. Let's go back onto where I'm at here. Right. So BMX has been performing very well. I think we need to just be pretty clear on that. So, I had an opportunity to buy when it was at a cent. just didn't do it, and now we're at 2 cents, and we have been ranging very nicely here. I think it's, you know, building a decent amount of structure. 50's only just coming in because it's relatively new, so can't really have a look at it too much. And again, I'm sticking on the daily, but I am kind of liking what I'm seeing. It's, you know, as positive days and negative days, it's just building up. And I think if you can catch it down the bottom of one of these, 1 cent 7 or whatever the hell that is, 17, we'll just call it, may not be a bad thing. Now, what I will say is it did spike down, you know, so when the market corrected, it did move, and it's had a couple of those. So again, you may want to put in a stink bid, as I call them, you know, just riding along this 50-year maybe. Even that's at 1.65 at the moment, or 0.0165. So just how you want to gauge getting in. I mean, if we just take it down, let's just take it onto the 4, and you can kind of see there's some nice kind of like structure. It's again slowly higher highs, but just rounding bottoms here. It's bouncing off them clean each time. Yeah, we are getting some reversals. This one may well be a reversal, top and coming back down. But I'm thinking it's, I kind of like the movement. I suppose if you draw it like that, on the 4 hour, it is pinching ever so slightly. Now that's going to take a while for it to do it, but it is compressing in. That's compressing based off a large run up. So maybe we're starting to look to build at the end of the month for a move up. You know, I'd say 51% up, 49% down, because it's a symmetrical, but based off of an upward movement. But yeah, I like it. Right, it's 9:30. I think I'm probably going to call it. My son's birthday tomorrow, and I'm sure I've got balloons to blow up and all sorts before he wakes up. So I think, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Sorry about the microphone issues at the start. Glad we got those resolved. But just a quick recap with, you know, ETFs are here, great. Don't be too worried necessarily if we now start to see people taking profit. Make a bit of FUD as people take that profit in. You know, if you bought round about these levels, it's not the end of the world. You give it a few months, halvening out the way, you'll still be laughing that you managed to get some in at that time. If you're looking to buy and you're a bit like me, happy to just sit on the sideline, just wait. And I'm just going to wait and just see how the market does. As I think I've mentioned plenty of times, I'm 80% in. So if it moves up and I have to just get them a bit later, I'll take it on the chin. But other than that, thanks for tuning in. Hope you all have an enjoyable evening, and I will see you all next week. Cheers now.